Hello all. Now, I was supposed to do this video like a month ago, but then I got sidetracked, and then I hit 2k, and then I hit 3k. So yeah, I kind of got put off to the side, but we're finally getting it done. As you can probably tell, this is what if DEKU had projection sorcery, one of the inherited powers of the Zenin clan, and lowkey one of the strongest in JJK as a whole. If you don't know, this power allows the user to split 1 second into 24 frames, animating themselves in those frames to move quick as hell, and to hit some devious attacks. This quirk's gonna be a lot of fun to run into the story, and I know I'm gonna have fun recording this. I got a really good idea of how I want it to work, and how to implement it as a quirk and stuff, so like usual, thank you to the thumbnail maker, Emmett this time, the GOAT for this one. I don't know why, but I love it. He's just nailed it. His channel will of course be linked in the description. Please go check it out and go spam him to upload that damn video. I've been waiting for him to drop that mutation quirk for the last week. Before you go spam him though, first drop a like and a sub. I'm so close to 4k. Trust me, I'm going to be dropping heat for 3k and 4k. They're coming out soon. And while you're down there, check out the playlist and the Spotify in the description, along with the membership and commissions info. Enough yap, let's get into it. This what if starts like usual with DEKU being born in the regular hospital to the regular Inko on his regular birthday. Growing up just being a normal kid, always being a fanboy of All Might, always saying he wanted to be a hero, and always preaching to his mom about it. But this time he was also obsessed with something else, anime. DEKU in this time is a geek. He watches everything. One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball, Death Note, Attack on Titan, everything. Watching videos on how they're made, getting into drawing himself, overall just having a fixation with animation, which of course would play a role in his quirk. As he grows up with this fixation of anime and stuff, he would befriend Bakugo in this timeline, have a weird dynamic with him. They were friendly, but never as close as in canon. They would always kind of fight between himself, DEKU in this timeline being a little bit more confident, but the one thing they could agree on is them wanting to be heroes. They could sit and talk for hours about their favorite heroes. DEKU tells Bakugo about all the cool heroes in anime, and Bakugo tells DEKU about all the cool heroes in real life. Both of them agreeing that they wanted to be heroes when they were older. Both of them being adamant they were going to get their quirks soon, which would happen for one of them, but not for the other. Bakugo walks into the school one day with his palms pointing to the sky, wearing his little blue sweater with teachers all around him, shooting off little sparks from his hands, which of course would be his explosion quirk. He right away searches the room, staring at DEKU. Hey DEKU, come over here and look at my quirk. It's like that villain from that one anime. What was his name? Mr. 5? DEKU hears this. Wait, Mr. 5, you can explode things? Right away he would jump up and rush towards Bakugo, sitting in front of him as Bakugo would start exploding his palms, watching it as his palm begins lighting up, small little sparks shooting off of it. DEKU seeing this is entranced. Whoa, what a cool quirk. You really are like Mr. 5. How does it work? Bakugo would go on and kind of explain it, sitting and yapping as Deku's smile would get bigger and bigger. Whoa, when I get my quirk, I hope it's just as cool as that. From there we would skip forward a couple of months, DEKU and Bakugo keeping the normal dynamic as in canon, until DEKU would turn 4 as well. Like you would think he would get taken to the quirk doctor, but this time he gets told he does have a quirk. They just have no clue what it is. He pulls up the whole toe joint thing, giving him an explanation before telling him that DEKU might just be a late bloomer. DEKU hearing this is of course super excited, going into school the next day and telling everyone he did have a quirk and that he was going to be a late bloomer, looking at Bakugo and telling him he too can be a hero, which Bakugo at this point would kind of be excited about. The excitement not lasting long though, with Deku's quirk not awakening within the first 3 months, then the next 6, until eventually it had been a whole year. DEKU now 5 years old and still quirkless. Bakugo seeing this would just get kind of pissed. In his mind, DEKU had been lying to him this entire time, getting his hopes up for nothing, and that annoyed him more than anything. And due to that, Bakugo would start his normal dynamic, starting with teasing at the start to just see what he can get away with, until eventually it would turn onto full-on bullying. DEKU coming home with scrapes and scratches all over himself, burn marks covering his stomach and stuff, which Inko at first would kind of just say was roughhousing until it would not stop. DEKU coming home every single day with a different scratch on him, never saying anything because in his mind, Bakugo was still his friend. He knew it was rough, but he was just a late bloomer. This mindset though would slowly fade as well, DEKU going from happy to neutral to anger, with the resentment building over time, all culminating when DEKU would see Bakugo bullying some other kids. Bullying him was one thing, but bullying another was something else. Seeing this, lowkey boiled his gut. He stood up without even realizing it, marching towards Bakugo as his goonies would stare at him. They start laughing as Bakugo turns, finally looking at DEKU. Oh hey DEKU, what are you doing here? What are you walking towards me so quick? Before he can finish, DEKU grabs onto his wrist, pulling it back from the kid who was now on the floor. Stop bullying him, Bakugo. How hard is it to leave these kids alone? I mean, what did he even do to you? Bakugo seeing this has his smile drop, staring at DEKU's hand that was now touching his wrist. Get your hand off me, DEKU! He flings DEKU's hand off, sending an explosion in his gut which would send him to the floor, staring at him straight in the eyes. Who the hell do you think you are? Trying to be some type of hero? What do you think you are? Some type of anime character or something? You've been watching watching too much stuff, Deku. Your head's been filled with nonsense. Deku, hearing this, slams his fist on the floor, jumping up from the ground, staring Bakugo down as he begins to grin. You know, it's time for me to teach you your place, Deku. I've had enough of you lying about your damn quirklessness. Just come out and say it already. As he says this, he jumps towards Deku, sending another explosion right towards his gut. Deku, seeing this, dodges out of his way, his analytic mind kicking in as he would stare at Bakugo, about to send a kick of his own until the two Goonies from behind him grab onto each of his arm, locking him in place as Bakugo would stare him down. Deku starting to kick and scream, Bakugo laughing as he walked closer. You know I was beating that kid up, Deku. It's because he was weak. But you know what? You're worse than weak. You're quirkless and you're a liar. You have no place being a hero. And if you don't want to hear me out, then I guess I'm gonna have to beat it into you. He sends another explosion towards Deku's gut, chaining him on his gut before sending a haymaker explosion right towards his chin. Deku, getting smacked by this, starts to see stars, staring up into the sky and seeing his entire life flash before his eyes, hearing Bakugo's words going through his head over and over again. Was the doctor really lying to me? Why would he even do that? That's crazy. Before he's about to get knocked out, his cursed energy would spike, Deku finally unlocking his technique. Before he can use it though, he's knocked out. The fight getting stopped by the teacher as the two of them would get sent to the principal's office. Deku at first getting sent up to the nurse's office before he wakes up and begins to scream and shout, cursing Bakugo out, who got off scot-free in this time. Deku being the one that got suspended because, according to all the other students, Deku was the one that marched over to Bakugo in the first place. After he hears this, he starts thrashing around, Inko being called up as Deku would get suspended. Inko would come in and see Deku thrashing around, apologizing for everything before grabbing onto Deku and bringing him into the car. She sees all the scrapes and bruises all over him, seeing his chin already swollen up from the punch that Bakugo gave him, looking at Deku, who looked more angry than he'd ever been in his entire life. Instead of taking sides, she would hear Deku out, hearing to Deku's story and immediately getting the idea. Right away, she takes him out of that school, never looking back and putting Deku into another school that was very close. A school with no future UA students, by the way. I'm too slack. It's also around this time that Deku would get his quirk checked again, this time going to Dr. Luttrell because they cheaped out last time. And due to this, Deku would finally get his quirk. Deku and Inko walking into the quirk office when they were 6 years old, at first getting a checkup before Dr. Luttrell would tell him that his quirk had awakened. The two of them, of course, excited about this, being sat down as Dr. Luttrell would begin to note some stuff down, putting his hand onto Deku's shoulder and staring into his eye as the description of his quirk would appear in his head, jotting some stuff down before beginning to talk to the two of them. Whoa, what a strange ability you have. It seems your quirk's name is projection sorcery. In short, Deku has the ability to turn his and others' movements into animation. Deku and Inko, of course, confused as the doctor would continue. This power divides 1 second into 6 frames, using Deku's point of view as the viewing angle. Pretend whatever Deku sees as a page. He can trace his own movements onto this page, which his body will then follow, splitting 1 second into 6 distinct outlines. It seems doing this he can get pretty quick. From what I've seen, you might be a little monster, kid. Deku, hearing this, is excited as anything. All the info he told him kind of feeling natural to him for some reason. Inko, though, is extremely confused. So, Deku can animate himself? The doctor says at Inko, well, kind of. Pretend you were a stick figure. Deku, using his technique, can split the next 1 second into 6 frames, which he can then use to do pretty much whatever he wants. Though it seems he can't do anything too out of the ordinary, like shapeshift or ignoring physics or anything like that. And I'm pretty sure there's a limit on how far he can push himself from one frame to the other. But other than that, it's a great quirk, kid. Inko still doesn't get it, but Deku does. Right away clocking every single bit of information that just got told to him, understanding it and getting super excited for how good of a hero he's going to be. Eyes going wide, thinking of every single opportunity he could do. Nerding out with the doctor a little bit until Inko would finally get him to go. From there, Deku would finally get home, staring around the place now with a huge, confident grin on his face. He wanted to get training right away, and he had the perfect spot to do so. The forest behind his house, a staple on this channel. As soon as he gets home, he'll go right into the forest, using his quirk for the first time on himself, which at first would be very difficult. Like, you gotta be able to think really quick with this quirk. Messing up on the first time and getting frozen for the first time as well. Deku realizing another weakness of his quirk, which was that if he ever drew himself wrong or drew himself ignoring physics too much, he would freeze up for a second, being completely helpless. After figuring this out, Deku would lock in, learning to animate a little bit slower and a little bit more closer together, using his 6 frames to animate himself running in a quick line, training on the basic stuff for the first couple of days. Along with this, he also gets accustomed to the new school, befriending most of the class and telling him he did have a quirk in this time, one that was pretty strong, which all of them would begin to hype him up for. So Deku would kind of take the Bakugo role in this school, though unlike Bakugo, he doesn't bully anyone because he's been a victim to that, and due to that, this school's a lot better off than that school. For the next couple of months, Deku would get more and more of a grasp over it, finding out the basics of his quirk, writing down every little note about it, recording himself training and stuff, and even starting to animate out of school as well. Doing this, he gets a lot better grip grasp over timing, keyframing, everything, getting to a point where he can comfortably get to about 10 seconds in a row using his quirk, training more and more until about the age of 8. In this time, he would train in the forest like you would think, rushing through the trees and stuff, using his quirk to make extra tight turns, using his quirk to like jump between 2 trees and stuff like a ninja, and eventually finding out that his quirk had a side effect. The longer he had it on, the more speed he could get up, finding out his quirk stacked if he's had it active long enough, going from 8 years old to eventually 14 years old, completely skipping the rest of the years because, yeah. Deku would be sitting on the last day of school, staring around himself and thinking back to his childhood, thinking back to Bakugo and getting a huge grin on his face. If he were here, he'd probably say some stupid shit. As he thinks this, the teacher would walk inside, in this timeline not telling everyone's business because he's not a snitch, and instead pulling Deku aside and telling him congratulations and like good luck instead. Though it's not like he had to keep it secret because the rest of the class already knew that Deku was going to UA, all hyping him up and stuff before the bell would eventually ring. Deku sits around a little bit and chats with everyone before eventually leaving, giving everyone a wave and telling them that he'll do them proud, walking off and making his way back home. Now, I usually would make him fight Bakugo, but I just did that in my last video, so instead Deku walks past his old school but doesn't meet up with Bakugo, being too late or something, instead taking this same path that he does in canon, jumping over a fence, walking over a dirt path, and eventually walking under the tunnel. Like you would think, Deku in this timeline has some earpods in too, completely oblivious as the Sludge villain begin coming out of the tunnel, staring at a now blissfully ignorant Deku with a huge smile on his face. You'll make the perfect bodysuit, kid, and would you look at that? You're deaf too. What perfect luck. Come here! As he says this, he sends out a huge tendril towards Deku, reaching towards him quicker and quicker before eventually grabbing onto Deku's back. Deku, feeling this, is of course shocked. What the? Unable to turn in time as the Sludge villain will begin reeling him in, pulling him across the ground and pumping more and more sludge all over him. Deku at first being hella scared before eventually he would lock in, reaching around himself and grabbing onto the Sludge villain's tendril, touching it with his palm and activating his quirk, using a move that he figured out quite a while ago. As his palm makes contact, the Sludge villain would freeze up instantly, being held in place by a huge picture frame, being suspended midair as Deku would stare it down. Oh, so this tendril counts as part of your body, does it? That's perfect. Right away, Deku uses his quirk on himself, almost teleporting to the side and staring the Sludge villain down. The Sludge villain in the frozen state can't do anything but stare. What the hell was that? Did he teleport? What the hell's wrong with me? As he thinks this, he finally breaks free, his sludge falling limp onto the floor as he stares Deku down. What did you do to me before? Deku staring him down and smiling. Oh, you really have no idea. As he says this, he almost teleports towards the Sludge villain, his movement looking choppy and blurry, barely being followable by the naked eye. The Sludge villain barely blocking in time, but it doesn't matter. Deku once again puts his palm on him, the Sludge villain freezing up instantly. Once again unable to move as Deku this time would cock his fist back, smiling as he sends a huge uppercut right towards the page. The frozen frame would instantly shatter, cracking into the Sludge villain's body and sending him flying backwards towards the tunnel, sending him flying backwards towards a now approaching All Might. As he flies, he finally breaks out of it, staring Deku down once more. Oh, that hurt, kid. Quit fighting. You're gonna be the perfect bodysuit for me. I didn't know that, freak. As he says this, All Might finally appears from out the sewage. Freak, am I? I think the bigger freak is you. He too cocks his fist back, staring at a Sludge villain that was coming flying towards him. Texas! Deku from the sideline watches this. Wait, no, there's no way. Deku's grin turns into a full-on smile, watching as the #1 hero would completely evaporate the villain, sending a huge gust of wind pressure towards Deku and sending the Sludge villain scattering everywhere. Deku, seeing this air pressure coming towards him, sends his palm out, the air in front of him turning into picture frames and dropping to the floor limp. All Might finally seeing this stops his fist. Wait, kid! He jumps towards Deku, seeing Deku kinda sludgy but not hurt at all, seeing Deku instead with a huge smile on his face, at first wondering what the hell Deku was doing until Deku would begin speaking. All Might, I'm a big fan. Can I have your autograph? He would start to stutter and stuff, giving All Might his notebook and getting his autograph, before All Might would finally start to ask him some questions. So, kid, why were you putting your hand out when I first saw you? Do you have some type of laser quirk or something? Deku hearing this bursts out laughing. Laser quirk? You lost your whole mind, All Might. I didn't see any damn lasers. All Might starts scratching the back of his neck as Deku would begin to explain his quirk, nerding out a little bit as he begins to collect the Sludge villain up as well. All Might hearing this is kind of shocked on how complex Deku's quirk is. There was so many moving parts, having a new respect for Deku in a kind of way, though not really seeing him as a worthy successor. He would wave Deku off like you would think and begin to jump off, flying high up into the sky, which Deku would watch, both of them completely ignorant as the Sludge villain would begin to fall out of All Might's whack-ass cargo pants. As the Sludge villain falls out, Deku would once again begin to walk home, taking a bit of a longer way home, you know, going through the city a little bit, which is where he would eventually hear the explosion explosions going off in the distance. This of course piquing his interest, Deku rushing over as quick as he could to go watch the villain battle. As he gets there, he sees a huge crowd of people around, like a couple of heroes, staring and seeing dead arms and stuff, remembering back to his conversations with Bakugo as a kid, shaking it to the back of his mind as he would try to get closer to the front, squeezing in between people and even using his quirk every now and then to freeze them up, eventually getting up to the front and getting a way better look at things. As he does so, he grabs out his phone, trying to make a quick buck off of selling off the footage, starting to zoom in as he would finally see the face and the villain. The two things finally clicking in his head, seeing all the explosions going off, all the fire around him, memories begin to spill out of his head. He remembers back to the day that Bakugo told him about his quirk. There's no way. He stares around at all the heroes around him, completely useless in front of the Sludge villain. Seeing this, he knows he can't sit back any longer, so instead he jumps up, activating his quirk on himself and beginning to drawing a mental image of himself rushing between the two heroes, jumping over a blockade and running towards the Sludge villain. As he does so, his body begins to follow. Deku focused on nothing but drawing, completely ignorant to the screaming of the masses behind him, his body looking like it was almost glitching in front of everyone, sitting in one spot for about 0.2 of a second before almost teleporting to the next spot, doing that over and over again, constantly building up speed as he rushes straight towards the Sludge villain. The villain stares him down. "Oh, it's you again, kid. Nah, what are you, jealous? I don't need you anymore. I got a better bodysuit." Deku hearing this smiles. "Hell nah, I'm here to save that kid." Rushing in, going side to side as quick as possible before finally getting a palm on the Sludge villain. All the people around him see as the Sludge villain begins to freeze up in front of him. Deku's once blurry movements finally stopping, watching as Deku went from one spot to the other in about 3 seconds, grabbing onto Bakugo's arm and beginning to yank him free. He uses as much effort as he could, All Might watching in the crowd beginning to freak out, watching as Deku would finally get Bakugo free, flinging him backwards and out of the Sludge villain as his quirk would finally wear off. The Sludge villain once again operational, but this time he was ready. He knew about Deku's quirk from last time, so this time he was ready. As he unfroze himself, he right away attacked right towards Deku, sending Sludge towards his legs, tripping him up and sending him flying towards the floor, sucking him straight in and beginning to take him hostage too. Deku tries to activate his quirk once more, but the Sludge villain dodges. Deku trying to animate himself out, but he couldn't. As he does this, he begins getting sucked into the villain, every part of him getting swallowed up except for his hands. Knowing that his power relied on his palms, the Sludge villain wouldn't let him get closer, and due to this, Deku would now be the one that gets swallowed up, only getting saved because All Might came in, buffing himself up and jumping towards Deku, grabbing him out last second and sending a haymaker punch towards the Sludge villain that changes the weather. Like you would think, from there Deku would get hella reprimanded, Bakugo on this timeline being completely knocked out and unaware of his savior. After that, Deku would get chewed out by the heroes before beginning to walk home, going home to have dinner instead and not meeting up with Bakugo. Bakugo completely clueless, sitting at home until they would have news coverage of it that night. Both Bakugo and Deku watching as they ran a story on it. Bakugo watching and being horrified. Deku, are you serious? Deku watching over the same news clip, thinking about how weak he was, thinking back to Bakugo's explosions. He was nowhere near that strong. All he had was the speed. He needed to get stronger. Bakugo though was thinking pretty much the exact same thing, thinking back to his childhood and reflecting on everything. He too needed to get stronger, because if it weren't for Deku, he would have been cooked. Over the next 10 months, the both of them would begin to train. Deku in this 10 months going completely crazy with his training, sitting in the forest damn near every day, working on his quirk 24/7 until eventually he would get some upgrades on it. Now, here's where I'm going to do a proper explanation of it, because I'm pretty sure the explanation I gave for it at the start of the video is not going to be enough. As you know, Deku can split 1 second into 6 frames from his field of view, though in this 10 months he's now increased it to 12 frames per second, which allows him to go pretty much twice as quick now. Anyways, in these 12 frames, it allows him to trace any actions created from the start. So he can start stationary and begin to drawing 12 distinct pictures from his field of view, which he will then begin to do. Along with this, whoever Deku touches with his hand will also have to define their next actions within those 12 frames. So pretty much they have to do exactly what Deku does, animating themselves moving pretty much. And if they don't, or they butcher it, they get completely cooked and frozen for a second, which Deku can also use to his advantage, as when he punches the frame, it does extra damage, doing a nice 2 times damage boost. That being said, actions cannot be edited halfway through, so once he's animated himself moving, he cannot stop, he's got to follow through with it. If he doesn't, he gets frozen. And along with that, if he ignores physics too much or does anything out of the ordinary, he also gets frozen. So he does have his drawbacks. He can just get frozen mid-fight and get completely slammed by a punch that's twice as effective, might I add. Though, if Deku continues to use his technique over time, using it over 10 seconds, drawing 12 frames per second over and over again, he will eventually build up speed, being able to move greater distances between the frame, which allows him to get quicker and quicker over time. I'll do it eventually, I'll do it justice, but I'm hoping this explanation and kind of clears up some questions he had. So let's say Bakugo threw an explosion towards him. He could either A, draw himself moving away from the explosion, moving quicker than he ever could and completely dodging it, or B, he could go in and touch Bakugo with his stomach, which would freeze him for a second, leaving him open for an attack which was twice as effective. Cool? Yeah. Deku would be training this for the next 10 months, working on his offense if anything. Now that he could animate himself for 12 frames per second, he had a lot more options. His movements didn't look near as choppy as before, and they actually moved a hell of a lot quicker if anything. In this time, eventually getting to about 30% 1 for all speeds. From here, I'm going to skip all the way to the UA entrance exam because I'm pretty sure I've covered every single one of his powers that I'm going to give him for now. Anyways, Deku from there would walk into the UA entrance exam, looking confident as all hell. In this timeline, not running into Bakugo because I don't want them to interact yet. Instead, he would walk in completely fine and sit the exam like you would think. Eventually going to the lecture, which he wouldn't talk through, so Ida wouldn't stand up, though he would still like call Present Mike out, and instead he would get humbled by Present Mike. And from there he would then go to the practical site for the practical exam. Deku in this timeline being in the exact same spot as he was in canon, being in the same site as Ida, Uraraka, like Kirishima and stuff, just kind of sitting and waiting, having a scroll or something like that until he got impatient, deciding to start walking to the front just as the doors would begin opening. Seeing this, he smiles, about to go through until Ida would come up from behind him, grabbing him on the shoulder and turning him. "What do you think you're doing? That is a fellow student. You really want to distract her before the exam? Shame on you! Shame on you." All the people around him start to stare at Deku, a couple of them giving the stink eye, you know, Ida standing up like a white knight as the rest of the people begin to rush out the doors. Deku watches this happen, watching as Ida would begin to like scream at him from the front as he begins getting more and more pissed. Ida being like, "I should report you to the..." Being cut off by Deku putting his palm on his stomach, freezing him in place as he would begin sprinting off. Ida left completely still, watching as Deku would begin running quicker than he's ever ran. Seeing this, he's horrified. But I thought his quirk was a paralysis quirk. Seeing Deku there 1 second and gone the next. By the time Ida was unfrozen, Deku was already gone, having gone about halfway through the fake city, staring around himself and eventually locating about 15 points worth of robots. Seeing this, he grows a big smile on his face, grabbing out a couple of things that he's been hiding for this exact occasion, putting on some like metal knuckle dusters, you know, only so his fist doesn't hurt, by the way. I don't want him to like get any extra powers or anything from it, that's lame. Anyway, Deku would put the knuckle dusters on, staring these 15 points worth of robots down as they would begin rushing towards him. Immediately, Deku activates his quirk, drawing 3 frames of him like running as quick as he can towards one robot, doing another 2 frames of him punching, before doing another 3 of him moving on, continuing this until he made it through about 6 points worth of robots. Having finally drawn his course out, he begins to rush, running at the robots full speed who begin rushing towards him straight. Deku, having thought of this, begins to pile on the damage, drawing up the next 12 frames as the 12 he just drew up begin to go through. So he's multitasking pretty much. Doing this, he breaks 15 points worth of robots in about 4 seconds, using his quirk to rush as quick as he can between every single one of them and destroying him in about 2 punches. The teachers from above look at this and are kind of shocked, wondering what the hell his quirk was, all of them staring at Deku, including All Might, whose eyes were completely open, staring Deku down and looking at him using his quirk. Whoa, who would have thought that he would have turned into this? All the other teachers stare and look at him. What are you talking about, All Might? You know this kid? All Might starts smiling. Yeah, I ran into young Midoriya, I think, about 10 months ago. Everyone's confused, asking what the hell his quirk is and stuff. All Might filling him in as Deku would begin rushing around. After destroying the first 15 points worth of robots, Deku did not turn his quirk off. He kept that shit going constantly, racking up more and more speed, running into as many robots as he can, sending simple one-taps their way, and lowkey running through about 80 points worth of robots. Doing this impresses the hell out of every single one of the teachers, all of them staring as he goes quicker and quicker, all until the final 0-pointer would appear. Deku finally turning his quirk off to stop and stare at it, staring as it begins to crush the buildings beneath its hands, running over trees and cars. He stares down, seeing all the students rushing towards him, all running as quickly as he can. Deku in this time deciding to do the exact same until he hears something. Like you would think you would hear Uraraka from the background, hearing as she tripped and fell before getting pinned under some metal. Deku hearing this right away stops and turns backwards, staring back at her and getting the same flashback of Bakugo's eyes and the Sludge villain. Seeing this, he knew he couldn't sit still. He right away acted, activating his quirk and going straight towards the 0-pointer, running it as quick as he can, drawing his outline every single second, constantly readjusting it to dodge debris, animating himself jumping over people and stuff, and letting his speed build up until eventually he reaches Uraraka. When he does, he finds the boxes on her were really heavy, too heavy for him to lift, and knowing this, Deku decides to pull out one of his secret moves, one that he was saving for the USJ, but now he had to use, this being impact frames. A little added power I gave Deku. Deku sits and concentrates, staring at the metal piece in front of him and putting both of his knuckle dusters onto one hand, cocking it back as he begins to animate himself. He draws himself with perfect form, punching into the box, pulling his fist back the next frame before punching back into it again, building up momentum in just his hand, allowing him to punch about 6 times in 1 second. Doing this, he completely slams the metal piece, breaking it but also breaking the gauntlets that were on his hand. He completely disregards them, grabbing onto Uraraka and running off as quick as he can, activating his quirk and running quicker and quicker as the second went on. Like you would think, the exam would then finish, all of the teachers excited to see Deku. Though before they can go downstairs to meet him, they find him already gone. Deku having used his quirk to completely dip from the area, going home and instead waiting the next 3 weeks for his acceptance letter. As he gets it, the normal speech would go on, All Might being like, I am here! Congratulations, young Midoriya. I can't even believe you're the same Midoriya I met 10 months ago. It seems you've been doing a lot of growing. That's beside the point though. What does matter is this. He pulls up the leaderboard, staring at Deku, who actually got first place by 1 point, beating the second place winner because of rescue points, having gotten 80 villain points and about, I don't know, the rest hero points. He's of course hyped by this until he zooms in, seeing who he won over. Bakugo, who would have thought? Memories start coming flooding back, a huge smile growing on Deku's face. Now I'm up by 2. That little nerd's gonna have to respect me. He would sit and listen to the rest of All Might's speech, you know, going and getting stuff ready for school for the next 3 weeks until eventually Deku would be invited to UA. Also, if you're wondering by the way, as soon as Bakugo saw that Deku got first place, he grabbed onto the disc and blew that shit up. He was fuming the entire time, being like, damn Deku, only won because of that damn hero points. What a damn cheater. All that stuff out of the way, they would then go to UA for their first day. Deku walking through the gates of UA with a huge smile on his face. He thinks back to all the animes he's watched, thinking back to all of his training in the forest, everything that led him up to this moment. Feeling a new sense of confidence in himself, he started to walk inside. Walking in as people around him start to stare at him. Whoa, it's that kid. People starting to whisper and stuff around him as Deku would rear the corner. Walking down the hallway and eventually finding class 1A. Looking at the huge door in front of him before taking a huge breath in. Breathing out before walking through the door. As he scans the room, his face goes from smiley to gloomy in about a second. Starting from the front and seeing Aizawa already on the floor. Scanning around and seeing Ida in the front row. Before looking a little bit left and seeing Bakugo. His smile drops right from his face. Bakugo staring back at him with eyes wide open. Damn it, Deku! What the hell do you think you're doing in my class? Damn quirkless wannabe. How did you do it? How did you do it? He starts getting up, starting to blare explosions in his hand as Aizawa would stand up as well. I would advise you sit your ass down right now. The two of them looking over as Aizawa's hair stands up, eyes looking red as both their quirks got cancelled. You two really had to wake me up from my nap. I could expel you both for just that. You're lucky I see both your potentials. Now sit down. The two of them right away sit down, looking like little dogs, staring up at Aizawa as he begins to talk to the rest of the class. Just assume the rest of the class came in while they were fighting, by the way. Now that everyone's here, go and get changed. We're doing a test. And since these two in the front row decide to piss me off, whoever gets last place gets expelled. The class starts oh, what are you talking about? Starting to tweak and stuff as Aizawa would slam his hand onto the desk. All of them getting the idea, getting up and running right towards the door. All of them getting dressed and a couple of them arguing with Baku and Deku over getting in trouble and stuff, until eventually they would all meet outside. Deku in this timeline being thrown the ball. Before I go on the whole tangent of Deku oh my god, he threw the ball and it went 400 meters. Nah, it ain't. It ain't gone 400 meters. His quirk doesn't do jack for this, so I'm gonna say Deku gets about 120 meters max. Actually, nah, he'll get about 200 meters. He turns the ball into a frame and then he smashes it midair. Plus he uses his quirk on his arm to animate itself going way quicker. I'm gonna say he gets about 250 meters max. Still pretty strong, but yeah. From there, the rest of the test would go like this. During the sprint, he'd be up against Ida, staring him down directly as the time would go off. The two of them rushing forward as Deku would begin to blitz him, completely smoking him, getting a score of a second and maybe 1.2 seconds, leaving Ida completely frustrated. From there, he would go to the grip strength, which he would also not get too much on. He can't really turn it into a picture frame because then it would just kind of knock it away, I think. Then he does the jump test, which who really cares about? And then eventually the leaderboard would be put out. Deku in this timeline getting second place, only being beaten by Momo. I've got to give her a due, with no one in this timeline being expelled and eventually everyone going back to class. From there, school would go on normal. President Mark teaching them English and stuff. Cementos teaching them science, I think, I don't know. All of them kind of bored until their favorite class would come up. Hero Training 101, being taught by All Might himself. Like in canon, All Might would rush through the door like a normal person, slamming the door open and running to the front of the class before pressing that big ass button and letting everyone's costumes come out. They don't even need to think or anything, they right away rush up to go get them, going to the changing room and meeting All Might down at Ground Gamma. Now, I never really think about how Deku's costume is going to look like, and usually I don't really care, but in this timeline he's got support items. Those of course being those like knuckle duster things that he's got, which I'm also going to upgrade to gauntlets at this point because he's got the UA funding behind him, and I'm going to make it a tougher material. Let's just say there's some Quirk material that's like obsidian in Minecraft, you know. His gauntlets are made out of that. He's also rocking the same thing that he does in the thumbnail. You know, that cool like zenin fit. Just looking kind of cold all in all. After getting dressed, he meets everyone down in Grand Gamma. All the students walking out with the like my heroes thing gone in the background. All my laughing before being like, well, the clothes really do make the pros. All of you look great. Scanning the place before looking at Deku. Wow, I thought you would be more of a speed type hero, you know. They kind of yap a little bit before All Might would begin to explain the exercise. Telling them all about the heroes versus villains, about the bomb, about the capture tape, and then telling them to draw lots like in canon. Like you would think, it would be Deku and Uraraka versus Ida and Bakugo. Bakugo hearing this gets a huge grin on his face, not saying anything but inwardly knowing that he wanted to show off, almost trying to tell Deku that he didn't need his help back then. They'd be placed up first, and like you would think, Uraraka and Deku would be sat at the front of the building, watching as Bakugo and Ida would walk inside, setting himself up and setting himself in the bomb room. Bakugo and Ida starting to plan, in quotation marks, their plan being Bakugo just running off, as Deku and Uraraka would actually start to plan at the front of the building, starting to talk about each other's quirks, with Deku explaining his and deciding to go with a plan. Knowing what they have to do, they both nod, waiting until All Might says they can go in over the intercoms before rushing inside. Deku right away would activate his quirk. Used to doing tight corners and stuff, he would rush around the bottom of the building. Uraraka walking straight down the hallway as Deku would completely clear the first floor. He from there meets her at the bottom of the first staircase, both of them walking upstairs before he does the same thing to the second floor, clearing it before he begins to hear something coming from above him. Bakugo's explosions vibrating the floor and walls around him, feeling the hum of his voice echoing off the walls. Damn it, Deku, where are you? Quit hiding from me. Deku hearing this smiles. I'm down here, Bakugo. Come down to the second floor. He looks back to Uraraka, nodding as Uraraka would begin to hide away, looping around from the side as Deku would watch Bakugo fall, staring him directly down in the eyes as Bakugo would begin to explode right towards him. You're mine, Deku. As he says this, he sends a huge right hook towards Deku, a right hook screaming right towards his face, explosion raring in the hand as Deku would stare it down. He thinks back to the Sludge villain, how big the explosions were back then, thinking quick and deciding to dodge, ducking under the right hook and grabbing onto Bakugo's side with his palm. As he does so, Bakugo would of course freeze up, completely stuck frozen in the air in a panel as Deku would stare him down. Alright, fine then, let's run the ones. As Deku says this, he cocks his fist back, staring down the panel. As he says this, Deku stares him down, looking at the panel he was frozen in, the explosion stuck hanging midair. He smiles before cocking his fist back, animating himself as quick as he can, rushing towards Bakugo and starting to throw punches. He throws rights, he throws lefts, animating his right hand going back and forward every second frame, and doing the same thing with his left hand, slamming Bakugo with about, probably like, I don't know, 10 punches or something like that in a second. Bakugo right away getting punched out of the frame by this, coughing up blood as he stares at Deku, flying across the hallway, almost knocked out already. Seeing this in his mind, he was freaking out. Damn, that Deku can hit hard. What the hell? I thought he had a speed quirk. He stares Deku down, still falling as Deku would begin rushing towards him, activating his quirk and animating himself going quicker and quicker towards Bakugo. He runs so quick he starts running on the side of the wall and stuff, jumping from side to side in the hallway, zipping and almost glitching around the hallway before slamming Bakugo with a punch. Deku appearing so quick he didn't even see him coming. Bakugo getting bounced off the floor as Deku would once again ready another one. Next one's yours, Uraraka. As he says this, Uraraka runs from around the corner, hands already out and ready, watching as Deku would put his palm right on Bakugo's stomach, seeing him completely freeze up midair, watching Deku grab the panel and throw it towards Uraraka. Bakugo completely helpless as he would begin to float, breaking out of the 1 second thing as the two of them would sit and laugh. What did you do to me, you cocky? He tries to run towards Deku, but he couldn't. He begins floating up, staring back towards Uraraka and starting to spam explosions at her, being more pissed than he's ever been. No, there's no way! You were just a quirkless wannabe! Deku from behind him completely disappears. Bakugo none the wiser as Deku would begin rushing towards the third floor. Now knowing Bakugo was completely done for, he would decide to 1v1 Ida instead. Rushing up to the third floor and finding the room that Ida was sitting in, doing his whole villain speech thing. Sitting and watching before walking into the room completely confident. Ida stops halfway and stares at Deku. Ah, hero, I've been expecting you. Seems you were able to take out my partner in crime. Well, I'm telling you right now, you're not getting past me. I can tell you're quick, but I'm quicker. Saying this, Deku would start to smile. You wanna bet? Staring at Ida, who would begin to get ready to start running. Deku sitting completely still until he was gone, completely vanishing from view in like half a second. Ida not even computing that he was gone until Deku had already touched the bomb. On the cameras, he looked like he damn near teleported, going top speed and using like as much of his range as he could. The class seeing this is shocked. What? That kid's that quick? Bakugo on the lower floor finally clocking it and staring backwards. No, when did that little shit, when did he go? Ida staring around himself before staring back at Deku. Damn, you're quick. Well, good game. He goes and like shakes his hand, giving him praises and stuff as Deku and him would walk to the second floor. As he does so, he sees Uraraka releasing Bakugo. He stares him down and gives him a smile. Hey, sorry about beating you so bad. Lowkey, I wanted to show off a little bit, that's my bad. But then again, you beat me just as bad in middle school, didn't you? Bakugo starts to like hang his head a little bit, watching as Deku would walk off, the other two like completely confused by this. They all get back to the classroom and everyone starts hyping Deku up. All of them just being like, whoa, what's your quirk? How does it work? Todoroki and them all confused on how it works because they all thought he had a speed quirk, but him freezing Bakugo like that was like really out of character. Deku would sit there and try to tell them all, but yeah, it ain't gonna work because it's just hard to explain. The rest of the class in this timeline doing their thing, Todoroki freezing the entire building, Mineta being a bum, you know, that type of stuff, until the class would eventually end. All of them going back to Aizawa, who would start to talk about their next activity, the USJ visit. He would start to walk around the classroom, handing out forms and stuff before getting them to get it signed by their parents. All of them would of course do so, all of them going home and stuff. Bakugo in this time having a kind of a big think about everything. I mean, he had 2 extra years of development on Deku with his quirk, and he's still got beat by him 2 times now. And he's been saved by him. All of it started spinning around his head and stuff, which would lead to a really bad decision. The next day, everyone would get onto the bus on their way to the USJ. Everyone's sitting and chilling, Deku just kind of doom scrolling a little bit until once again, Froppy would ask the question, who does everyone think is the strongest? Everyone kind of thinking about it until someone would speak from the back. Bakugo. Hey Deku, how does that stupid quirk of yours work anyway? It's like you got multiple quirks, it's bull. Still kind of festering over all the losses he's had. Everyone's stopping and staring at Deku, who once again begins to explain it. This time kind of dumbing it down for everyone, giving them all examples and stuff, which they would finally understand. This explanation going on for the entire bus ride over there until eventually they would make it to the USJ. As they get there, they right away get off, all of them walking inside and meeting with Pro Hero 13 as she starts to do her Pro Hero speech. Deku, of course, like not really caring about it, would start staring around, looking at all the stuff around him. The boats, the mountains, the fire zone. It was kind of crazy how big everything was. He starts to search the place more and more, trying to figure out which one looks the coolest until eventually he would see something from the middle. Korigiri beginning to warp inside. Deku right away seeing this would turn to Aizawa. Yo Aizawa, is that supposed to be someone coming in or something? What the hell's that down there? Aizawa hearing this would turn around and like look around. Looking at Deku, who points down to the middle, staring at a now appearing Korigiri. As he does this right away, Aizawa would lock in, telling 13 to take care of the students as he would jump off the edge, flying downwards and starting to fight with all the fodder villains. Korigiri, like you would think, would teleport up and start his whole like, we are the League of Villains speech, staring everyone down as his mist would begin to like shake around him, tearing off him and starting to form a dome around all the students. 13 seeing this starts to use her quirk, starting to like suck him up and stuff paws, which like you would think Korigiri would counter, but this time Deku would counter as well. As Korigiri starts to warp up 13, Deku rushes towards him, running so quick he could barely see as Deku would put his palm right on the metal part, getting lucky enough just to clip it, completely freezing Korigiri in place, the dome around the students cracking and creaking, tearing up before dissipating. Pro Hero 13's quirk finally winning over Korigiri's and sucking him up, gaining enough power just in time for Deku's quirk to wear off. Korigiri getting completely sucked up and turned into dust. All the students watching in horror. Pro Hero 13 thanking Deku for the assist before turning to everyone. This is a real situation. All of you huddle together. As she says this, Ida would begin to like try to run off, trying to go get the teachers from UA until Deku would stop him, being with the class 1 second before being with Ida the next, grabbing onto his shoulder and freezing him in place. He turns back to the class in 13. I can go get him. I don't want him to hear this, but I am quicker than him. He like tells everyone to shush before turning back and sprinting off. Ida finally being unfrozen and seeing as the rest of the class would stare back at him, watching as Deku rushes right towards the doors of the USJ. Deku from the second he touched Ida would have had his quirk active, using it to constantly animate himself going forward, constantly refreshing his 12 frames per second to push himself even further. His quirk starting to kick into overdrive as Deku would start going crazy, running so quick his shoes and stuff start to tear apart, his shirt ripping and starting to burn up. but it still wasn't enough. In his head, he thinks of all the things that could be happening at the USJ right now. All the villains that could be fighting students. How bad Aizawa could be doing right now. He needed to go quicker. As he's traveling down the road, he begins to feel something. Feeling his fingers going tingly and stuff. His head feeling light as he feels his quirk expanding. His field of vision increasing as more and more pages would begin to show up in his mind. About halfway to making it there, Deku would unlock something. The next step in his quirk. Something he never thought was possible. The ability to do 30 frames per second. With that, Deku was pretty much just like doubled or tripled even his power. Slowly trying to adjust to his new 30 frames per second as he feels himself speeding up more and more. Looking like a blur on the road. Feeling the air whip past his skin. Every drop of water in front of him feeling hard. Bugs splattering all over him, but it didn't matter. He goes from the USJ back to the school in about 40 seconds. Turning off his quirk before turning it back on again. Using it to rush as quick as he can right up the staircase. Turning to his left and right before finding Nezu's office. Rushing right towards it and jumping through the door. As he does so, he sees Nezu in his little suit and All Might in his debuff form, sipping on some tea. Finding them both mid-conversation talking about their next successor, Mirio Togata. But that doesn't really matter. As soon as Deku rushes in, the two of them stop and stare. All Might like stuttering and stuff, being like, what are you doing here? As Nezu would take a look up and down. Oh my, what happened to you? It's almost like you. He gets cut off by Deku catching his breath. Villains! USJ! Quick, come! Nezu and All Might look at each other before All Might begins to buff up in front of him. We'll talk about what you just saw here at a later date. For now, let's go. The three of them start to get every single teacher at UA, running through every single classroom and picking up everyone that was available. Present Mike, Snipe, all the regular heroes. Getting them all outside as Deku would start to run off again. Running straight towards USJ, getting a bad feeling. All Might seeing this rushes next to him. Hey kid, damn you're quick. Slow down kid. Deku would slow himself down a little bit, checking All Might down. Yeah, All Might, what's up? Trying to focus on drawing himself plus talking to All Might at the same time. About what you saw, kid. Deku looking at him smiles. Yeah, it's whatever, All Might. Who cares? So what, you got like a buff form or something like that? All Might starts scratching the back of his neck. Oh, you don't even know the half of it. Deku and him starting to laugh a little bit until Deku would get a chill down his spine. A sick feeling coming over his stomach. The hairs on the back of his neck start to stand on edge as Deku would lock back in. Okay, All Might, I'm going ahead. I'll meet you there. All Might watches as Deku would go from right next to him to gone. Damn near teleporting about 5 meters ahead of him. Going about 100 meters in a second, which would slowly speed up. Deku, now used to his 30 frames per second limit, would be zooming. Running at about like 75% one for all speeds. Getting back to the USJ in half the time it took him last time. Running straight through the door, which would crack every single pane of glass around him. A huge gust of wind following as he would rush down the stairs. All of his 30 frames running down the stairs. Animating himself looking around the USJ. Taking in as much info as he could within those 30 frames. Stopping himself dead at the bottom of the stairs as he looks around him. Seeing Aizawa on the floor, bloody and beaten. Todoroki freezing the Nomu halfway, with Bakugo in its grasp. Seeing this, Deku gets flashbacks from the Sludge villain. Seeing his Nomu thrashed around with Bakugo in his hand, playing with him like he was a Barbie doll or something. Bakugo damn near limp as the Nomu would begin to regenerate. Deku seeing this gets more angry than he's ever been. Seeing straight red and rushing towards the Nomu. Being at the staircase 1 second and gone the next. Pinging himself between about 30 villains in front of him before stopping right before the Nomu. His fist already cocked back. Left palm already stretched out as he touches the Nomu's stomach. Shigaraki watching from the sidelines, seeing the boy appear right in front of the Nomu. Seeing the Nomu freeze up in a picture frame as Deku would throw a mean punch right towards his gut. Animating himself going through the Nomu, constantly overlapping his fist onto itself, making it so he punches one frame and then his fist goes back to the frame it was before. Stacking about 20 punches on top of each other, which would get quicker and quicker. Slamming the Nomu with a punch that goes straight through the panel, shattering it and bursting the Nomu's gut open again. The freshly regen Nomu gets slung backwards, slamming into the wall of the USJ as he drops Bakugo. Deku deactivating his quirk as his motion would get clear again. Shigaraki staring on from the sidelines, watching as the Nomu was there 1 second and flung the next. Seeing this, he starts to tweak out. Who the hell is this kid? Where did he come from? Nomu, I thought I told you to kill that kid. Now get up. There's no way that brat beat you. Deku notices as the Nomu would begin to get up from the side, staring Bakugo and Aizawa down. Well, damn, I can see how he beat you now. Don't worry, I got you. He activates his quirk once again, grabbing onto Bakugo and then running over to Aizawa, picking the two of them up and starting to run towards the exit at full speed, having already animated his 30 frames. As he begins to do the motion though, the Nomu would rush towards him, appearing right in front of him and slamming him with a punch while Bakugo was in his arms. Deku getting punched would freeze up, going into the same picture frame he puts others into, completely frozen as the Nomu would slam slam him down like a nail, driving him into the floor with twice the impact because he was frozen, you know. Bakugo getting flung to the side as the Nomu would lock back in on him. Shigaraki's starting to laugh like a maniac. "That's what you get, brat. What did you think was gonna happen? You think you're a main character? Quit dreaming. Welcome to the real world, kid." The Nomu rushing and about to thrash away at Bakugo again until someone would appear. Seeing the kid he just talked to about 30 seconds ago dead on the floor pretty much. Watching as the Nomu was about to sling a punch towards Bakugo and pretty much end his life. As he sees this, his rage would reach a new level. All Might going like 120% to go in and finish the Nomu with one punch, sending him flying to damn near a different state, gone and never coming back. Shigaraki seeing this is horrified. "Nomu, wait, it's you! Of course it's you!" He stares All Might down, who looks down at Deku. A Deku who was still holding onto Aizawa, looking at Bakugo as a pool of blood begins to form below him. For the first time ever, All Might considers killing. His head slowly lifts to stare at Shigaraki. "Are you the one behind this?" Shigaraki, consumed by anger, would start running towards All Might. "It's you! I'll kill you!" The whole class watching as All Might would rush in, sending a punch that would go through Shigaraki's gut. Pulling his fist back as Shigaraki would drop to the floor, staring at the hole where his stomach used to be. All Might turning away coldly, going instead to go pick up his students and Aizawa, running up to the top with them as the rest of the students stay silent. The pro heroes following behind him and taking care of the rest of like the fodder and stuff, which would lead to a UA victory. So Korigiri's dead, Shigaraki's dead, but also Deku, Bakugo and Aizawa are critically injured, especially Bakugo. He got his ass beat. If you're wondering, by the way, that was a bad decision. I didn't really go into it that much, but Bakugo, because he was feeling so like inferior and stuff, would have rushed down with Aizawa and would have got his ass beat by the Nomu, and thus that's him getting injured so bad. From there, the police and the ambulance would come, picking up the three that were critically injured and taking them into the hospital, as the police would question everyone else about what happened. The three of them sit in hospital for like 3 days, Aizawa and Deku waking up after 3 days, with Bakugo waking up after 5, this event having shocked him, finally pulling him into line. After this event, UA does a whole press conference, going against the media and stuff, telling them everything's fine, as every student in UA would get a week off. After this week off though, every student comes back, including Bakugo and the other two that were injured. As soon as they come back though, they're shocked to see something they didn't expect. The UA Sports Festival up and running. Of course they're all gassed about this, not being told about it or anything. Right away rushing inside and finding their little dugout, you know, sitting in it and starting to like talk around with each other. All just super excited to finally participate in the UA Sports Festival. I mean, they've been watching it for years, but this was completely different. Deku in the dugout would feel around him. He could feel the vibration of all the crowd above him, feeling the thud of their footsteps on the cement walls, hearing their eager screams deep within the dugout. A huge smile growing over Deku's face as he begins to walk out. The rest of the class following as Midnight would introduce everyone. Everyone going hype for Class 1A, all because of the USJ incident, you know, knowing there had to be at least 1 or 2 monsters in that class. The festival from there would go on, Deku in this time doing the speech, which I'm not going to make up because I'm slack, which would then lead to the obstacle course. Hearing this, Deku gets a huge smile on his face, staring at all his competition around him. Seeing Ida, Bakugo and Todoroki all with worried faces staring back at him, he knew he had this in the bag. He slowly makes his way to the front, moving some people out of the way, pushing some others before he would eventually stand next to Bakugo and Todoroki. As he stands right in the middle of them, Midnight would finally raise her hand up, gun in hand, as she would begin to get ready to shoot. Class 1A's big three all stands at the front. Deku standing in the middle as Bakugo stands to his right and Todoroki stands to his left. All three of them staring completely dead straight, all completely ready, watching as Midnight would finally shoot. As she does so, Deku would immediately activate his quirk, putting his hand out to the right and to the left and putting his hand on both of their stomachs, palm facing towards them as they would immediately freeze up. Deku not even looking backwards as he would start to sprint off, his quirk immediately active as he starts to draw his 30 frames. The rest of the students behind him can't even react. Everyone seeing Bakugo and Todoroki completely frozen up in picture frames as Deku would sprint off, already way too quick for the eye to see. All the staff and onlookers watch as Deku would speed up, 1 second passing as he goes about 100 meters. The next second, Deku was already at the robots, zipping between every single one of them before running straight between his 0-pointer's legs. The entire stadium goes crazy about this. Everyone watching as finally Todoroki and Bakugo were unfrozen, having lost damn near every single bit of hope because Deku was already so far ahead. As the stadium stares this down, Aizawa would begin talking up. As you've probably noticed, that right there is Izuku Midoriya. His quirk is named Projection Sorcery. He starts to explain his quirk and stuff. Everyone watches on as before Aizawa can even finish, Deku jumps the pit and then runs straight over the minefield, running so quick he doesn't even activate the mines, finishing the race before Aizawa can even finish his sentence, taking him about, 10 seconds to finish? Pause. As he does so, the entire crowd goes crazy, erupting into cheer. Aizawa finishing explaining his quirk and stuff, before telling everyone about Deku's heroic actions at the USJ. Right away, Deku's put as a fan favorite. All the rest of the students bidding for second place as Deku would take in all the praise, kind of waving down the audience and stuff, before going back to the locker room and sitting and watching the rest of the race. Watching as Todoroki in this time will get third and Bakugo in this time will get second. Both of them were like, of course pissed by this, but you know, they saw it coming. Picking their head up and deciding to do better on the next match, which would be the cavalry battle, which I'm gonna skip. Skipping right over to the 1v1 battles. Now, like you would think, Deku in this time would be versing Shinso. Usually I would say he loses to him because he doesn't have any like mental protection or anything, but I hate Shinso winning. So instead, Deku's gonna do this. As he walks out onto the stage, he stares Shinso down. Shinso of course starting to chat, going crazy, talking all types of shit. Midnight shooting her gun as the round would start. Deku about to activate his quirk until Shinso would pull out his trump card, talking about his mama. Deku doesn't play about his mama, so right away he would talk back, getting caught right into Shinso's trap, feeling himself lose complete control over his body, his arms going limp, head hanging low as Deku would begin to walk out of the ring. As he does this, the entire stadium goes silent. What? There's no way! Aizawa up in the presenter booth with a huge grin on his face. All Might kinda worried, watching as Deku would near the edge. Deku in his own head was like cursing himself out. Damn it, how could I get caught to that shit talk? Are you serious? He starts getting more and more angry until he would finally lock in. Oh wait, what am I doing? In his head he starts to draw, about 2 steps away from the edge as he would freeze himself into a picture frame, breaking himself out of Shinso's brainwashing and completely sitting still for a second. Everyone's confused by this. What the hell just happened? Someone else is like, wait, wasn't that thing that happened at the start of the obstacle course? Someone else is like, yeah, I thought that was someone else's quirk. Everyone starts murmuring and stuff as Deku would finally break himself out, turning towards Shinso and smiling a huge smile, watching on as Shinso ran desperately towards him, ready to start throwing hands until Deku would activate his quirk. Only for a second though. As he does so, the world seemingly freezes around him. Deku seeing the world around him as his canvas, starting to trace each of his next movements onto the canvas, flinging himself right past Shinso and stopping himself right behind him. As he finishes the animation, the world around him would unfreeze, all of Deku's 30 frames coming to life as Deku would damn near teleport behind Shinso. To Shinso, Deku was there 1 second and completely gone the next. He stops running, looking around himself before he too is frozen in a picture frame. Deku smiling behind him as the crowd would erupt into cheer, watching as Deku grabbed onto Shinso and ran him out of bounds, throwing the picture frame out of bounds as Shinso would unfreeze. Unable to do anything as he would start rolling off, flying off and slamming onto the grass below him. Seeing this, he gets pissed, slamming his fist onto the floor. God damn it, are you serious? Deku sees this from above, cracking a grin before going serious again. Hey, good game! He goes down, like helps him up, telling him he did good for a general course student and stuff, and telling him his quirk was crazy good. Shinso at first just like thinks he's just like buttering him up and stuff, until Deku would explain that he was just a bad match. I mean, Deku's probably the only one that could have got out of that. I mean, maybe Todoroki could have like frozen himself, I guess. I don't know, can you even use your quirk when you're in Shinso's brainwashing? Who cares? From there, Deku will go on to the second round, this time versing Todoroki. Now, this is going to be a hard match. As the two of them meet in the middle, Deku would start to stare Todoroki down, Todoroki looking pissed, leg already icy and ready to send a glacier towards Deku. Seeing this, Deku smiles. Watching this from the corner of his vision, Midnight would hold her hand up. Deku would right away get ready, waiting until it goes off and seeing Todoroki's huge attack coming towards him. This attack was like damn near the size of the one that he sent towards that tape guy. Deku's grin turning into a full smile as once again the world around him would freeze. Deku thinking for a little bit before he starts to move, in his eyes making an outline that goes right around it. Todoroki none the wiser as Deku would appear next to him, fist ready to punch until Todoroki would react quicker, sending a huge glacier of ice towards Deku. Deku would have tried to get out of there, but he didn't get away in time, his leg getting caught in it as the rest of his body would freeze up. Deku once again in a picture frame as Todoroki stares him down, Todoroki smiling a wicked smile before sending a flurry of punches right towards Deku, hitting him with twice the efficiency as he would get flung backwards, rolling all over the floor before Deku activates his quirk again, getting himself the hell out of there and catching his breath. His stomach starts to cramp up from that attack, nose already bleeding. Damn it, how could I go get myself caught like that? Are you serious? Oh, guess that's the downsides of having this quirk. After shaking himself out of it, he locks back in, looking around himself and activating his quirk, this time on the offensive. Once again running towards Todoroki, but this time running the complete other way, going from Todoroki's left side all the way around the glacier to his right side. side. Doing this, he builds up hella speed, running around the entire glacier before sending a fake punch right towards Todoroki's stomach. He barely sees this in time, trying to react and send another glacier, but Deku was once again gone. Running around the glacier again and meeting him on his left side, seeing him still looking towards his fake out, grinning before touching him with his palm. Todoroki, before he can react, is frozen in place. Deku, keeping his quirk active the entire time, would have been running so quick he didn't even see him. While Todoroki was frozen, he turns around once more and runs the entire way around the glacier again, getting more and more speed before Todoroki would finally be unfrozen. Unable to react as Deku's punch was already connected with his stomach, looking like Mahito's Black Flash, sending him flying towards the edge of the arena. Todoroki barely catching himself with ice as Deku was once again in front of him, left hand outstretched and palm facing towards his stomach, about to get frozen up again until his fire side would flicker to life, burning the shit out of Deku's hand, making him wince back in pain, which would freeze him up again. In his head he's like, damn it, are you serious? Completely open to attack as Todoroki this time would send a fiery punch, more pissed than he's ever been, coating his fist in fire and sending it right towards Deku's face this time. He connects, damn near breaking Deku's nose, sending him tumbling all over the floor, seeing stars and stuff and finally feeling all of his fatigue. Oh, what the hell? What happened? Before he can get his thoughts together, he sees Todoroki running towards him again, fire lighting up one side as ice begins to form on the other. Deku, seeing this, knows he's created a monster. Activating his quirk and pushing himself up before getting the hell out of there, he runs to the other side of the huge glacier, watching as Todoroki would send fire towards it this time, completely melting it. Deku, seeing this coming, would run towards his left, seeing as Todoroki this time traps him in with ice, being pinned and being forced to run only straight. Todoroki, seeing this, smiles, starting to charge up his final attack like he did versus Deku and Cannon, but Deku smiles too. Right away he activates his quirk, forcing himself this time to zigzag, going from the fire side to the ice side to the fire side again, doing this over and over again for about 4 seconds before running it straight at Todoroki, using every single ounce of speed he's gained to that point to slam him with a punch, about to connect until Todoroki's attack would be let off too, his fist at first being forced back by like hella, like steam and stuff, until Deku would send his left palm out. Like he did with All Might's wind gust, he starts to touch the air coming towards him, dropping it limp between the two of them as his punch would begin to go forward again, still collecting speed as he would slam Todoroki in the face, just barely connecting with him and knocking him out, thank god. After this attack, the entire stadium is let off with like steam and stuff, no one able to see as Todoroki would drop to the floor, fire and ice deactivating as Deku would be announced the winner. Though this was like a really close fight. Low-key, I could have seen it going either way, but I want Deku to verse Bakugo, so both him and Todoroki get sent to the recovery bay, getting himself healed up and stuff, Deku in this timeline being like pretty injured because he had a broken nose and stuff, saying sorry to Todoroki and stuff before his next match is called up, him versus Bakugo, a match he's been waiting for ever since he was a kid. As he walks through the hallways, he begins to remember back, thinking back to his primary school experience, how it felt when he was quirkless. He remembers back to his feelings, his rage, knowing that if little Deku was here right now, he would tell him to go all out against Bakugo, and knowing that he would not hold back. Deku walks out to the stadium, staring Bakugo down, who in this timeline looks kinda calm. Remember, he got his shit beat in by the Nomu, so he's not like an angry little yappy dog anymore. Deku though does not care. As soon as the match goes on, Deku would activate his quirk, doing the same thing he did with Todoroki but right away, starting to run all around the arena, gathering more and more speed as Bakugo would start to fly up into the air. Seeing this, Deku rushes towards him, running up and touching his back with his palm, just as he was about to launch off. Bakugo frozen in a panel as Deku would use his momentum, running from the back to the front and slamming Bakugo with a punch, breaking him free from the panel and watching him slide towards the edge. Deku gives him no time to get back up again, keeping his quirk active the entire time and rushing towards Bakugo again, watching him fall onto the floor and predicting where he'll land, animating himself going over there and slamming his palm down again, luckily connecting with Bakugo's arm. He sees him freeze up in place again, Deku once again looping around before this time sending a huge kick, slamming Bakugo in the stomach he just had surgery on and knocking him clean out, thankfully not doing any like internal damage. I was about to make him do like a Black Flash or something, but that would damn near kill him. So with that, Deku would win first place and pretty easily at that. Todoroki of course gave him much harder of a fight because this Bakugo is like a pacifist at this point, but who cares about that? Like you would think, Bakugo gets second, Todoroki gets third, and Deku would get first. All of them calm in this timeline, accepting their medals and stuff and getting the next 2 days off, giving the students time to rest and giving the teachers time to get ready. As the students come back, they would of course be met with a huge folder on their desk. Deku walking in and finding that his wasn't really that big. I mean, sure, his quirk was good and everything, but like, who's gonna take him. No one really has a quirk like his except for maybe like Hawks, and even then that's a stretch. Seeing this, he starts to like flick through it, about to give up until he sees one name that sticks out to him: Sir Night-Eye. This is like the only hero I think he could like actually gain something from, and due to that, Deku would be going to the Sir Night-Eye agency for the next week. I'm not going to get too into detail, but remember, Mirio has one for all in this timeline, so Deku for the next week would be training with him, maybe going on some patrols or something, and training with Night-Eye to predict people's moves, something that I think could be very useful, especially for his quirk, especially after he got caught by Todoroki like that twice. And due to that, for the next week, he will just go crazy. Along with that, I'm not going to kill Ida off in this timeline. People have been complaining about it a little bit, and I want to let him live for once. So, Ida channels his anger like a normal person, and for the next week, everyone would be training. Pretty much as soon as they get back though, they're met by the final exams. Deku in this timeline having completely forgotten to study, just deciding to wing it anyway, as he walks into the 3 exam and gets like 75%, maybe 80. Still solid, but nothing too good. From there, going to the practical exam instead. I'm also probably going to gloss over this too because I kind of want to get to the final fight, but Deku, like you would think, would be fighting All Might in this, but I genuinely don't think he would be with Bakugo in this timeline. I mean, sure, they've been beefing and everything, but I don't know, I just don't see it. So instead, I'm going to put Deku solo, giving All Might double the weights that he does in canon, and letting Deku go nuts a little bit. Deku hearing this would smile. He knows he's just about as quick as All Might, so that's not a problem. It's his power. As the rest of the fights go on, Deku starts to like think about it and stuff, starting to strategize, until finally his fight will be called out. He starts to stretch and stuff, getting ready and walking out to the fake city. As he does so, he can feel the ground shaking already. Hearing as the buzzer goes off and seeing something off in the distance, the ground starting to peel up and coming towards him. His eyes right away go wide. Damn, already All Might? Running to the side as the entire road would begin to flick up. Deku in the alleyway, feeling All Might's presence. Nervous smile growing on his face as he starts to walk out of the alleyway again. Taking a huge breath in before activating his quirk, knowing he's gonna have to keep it on for a while to be able to beat All Might. As he does so, he sees All Might coming towards him. Deku right away rushing the other direction as All Might would begin to run. The two of them doing a little bit of a chase, you know, until Deku finally gets enough speed up, turning and facing All Might, getting ready to throw some hands. You ready, All Might? All Might off in the distance starts to laugh. I am, young man. Bring it! As he says this, the two of them clash in the middle. Deku throwing a huge overhand right as All Might meets it in the middle with a huge underhand right. Their fists clashing in the middle. Deku doing that whole the whole layering punch, you know? I don't know what to call that yet. The punch where he throws the punch and then he reanimates himself on top of it, like overlaying itself. Yeah, either way, he does that and All Might and him clash in the middle. Deku doing this actually overpowers All Might, sending his arm flying backwards as Deku would grab onto his stomach, palm moving just too quick for All Might to see, touching All Might and turning him into a panel. Deku seeing this rushes right towards him, punching him straight and running again. All Might being cracked out of his panel and sent flying backwards, having his hands up though, not really feeling too much of the impact. When he finally gets out of the panel, All Might sends a huge looping right hand that sends a huge gust of air towards Deku. Deku, having gained so much speed at first, tries to tank it, feeling himself slow down again until he starts animating his palm up, freezing the air in front of him and running right through it. All Might kinda shocked as once again Deku's right in front of him. All Might about to counter until Deku would run behind him, trying to sneak attack him, but All Might would figure it out. He balls his fist up and sends it flying backwards, clipping Deku in the face, which would send him flying into a building, like flying. He crashes through one of the buildings, the force ricocheting throughout the entire complex, shattering every single window. Deku, having been hit by this, also gets frozen up, getting sent flying and hitting the building with twice the force. Feeling this, Deku damn near gets knocked out straight away, coughing out some blood and locking back in again. If I'm hit again, I'm done for. He slowly gets up before activating his quirk again, running out of the building and this time running straight away from All Might, running back towards the entrance gate before turning around and running back the other way. He sees the exit gate off in the distance, knowing he's got a straight path right to victory in front of him. All Might though was still standing in the way. Fine then, All Might. If you won't get out of the way, I'll make you. With his quirk still active, he starts running around, gathering up as much speed as he could before running it straight at All Might. As he does so, all of his clothes start to burn up, the asphalt below him getting crushed and cracking after every step, burning up as Deku would cock his fist back. All Might's eyes going wide as Deku appeared in front of him, fist held back, looking like Deku in season 4, when he's versing like Overhaul and stuff. All Might barely seeing his fist flying forward as he sees something sparking off of it, a black lightning emanating from his fist as he gets slammed in the chest. Deku once again using his overlapping punch, which would this time be a black flash, sending All Might flying about 100 meters back, completely out of control of himself midair, unable to do anything as Deku would begin rushing off, feeling almost as light as a feather. He gets a feeling of euphoria, looking at everything around him as he started to run. It all looks so clear. Time froze around him as this time he would begin drawing again, noticing he felt like he could do more now. After hitting Black Flash, he went from 30 frames per second to 60, being quicker than Prime All Might at this point. All Might in the sky gets a good view, watching as Deku would go from about like halfway down the city to like the end in about half a second. Completely shocked. I've never seen anything move that quick before. All the students down below think it's like some type of glitch, complaining and like arguing about what happened to the cameras. Hearing as Nezu would announce Deku the winner. Everyone going silent and watching as Deku would walk into the room, shirt half ash at this point, seeing Deku with cuts and bruises all over him, breathing heavier than he's ever breathed before, staring around at all of them before passing out on the floor right there. Right away, Recovery Girl gets to like action, you know, not using her quirk because that could probably kill him, instead just like giving him regular help, letting him sit and rest and reprimanding All Might. This would go on for the next like 2 days, Deku having overused his quirk and in this time awakened his quirk pretty much, though there's still one more step. Deku wakes up about 2 days later, right away getting rushed onto the bus, having woken up just in time for the training camp. Inko brings a suitcase that was already pre-packed, hugging him goodbye as Deku would go off for the next couple of days, sitting in the bus and stuff as people would start to ask him what happened in the final exam. Deku beginning to explain it until he feels the bus stop, looking around himself as Isaiah would tell him to all get off. Everyone of course doing so as like you would think they would get flung right off the edge. Isaiah and the teachers laughing at him from above as they're told to run to the training camp. Everyone starts to groan and stuff except for Deku, who starts to smile. Run, you say? Isaiah from above has his eyes go wide. Shit, I forgot about him. Everyone watching as Deku would completely disappear, instantly running about 200 meters away, completely dodging every single one of the dirt monsters and running straight to the camp in about, what, 10 seconds max? Beating even the teachers there and just sitting and chilling with Koda for a little bit, telling him about his quirk and stuff, and just kind of getting to know him a little bit. When the teachers finally arrive though, Aizawa reprimands him, telling him because he did that, he's gonna have to run laps around a mountain for the next like 3 hours, completely quirkless. Deku hearing this is horrified. Aizawa sitting and watching as he would do so, running for 3 hours straight as the rest of the class would eat dinner. After this, he straight away passes out, not even eating dinner that night, going to sleep and waking up early the next morning for the training, which in this timeline is going to be something a little bit different. Ever since the Black Flash versus All Might, he felt like he could do something extra, going out and deciding to test it out alone, noticing that now he can finally do something that he's wanted to do for a while now, finally allowing him to change between his frames per second again. So he can go from 60 frames per second to about 6 frames per second, going from really quick to stopping pretty much instantly. Now usually I'd say this like breaks his physics thing, but I'm not gonna, that's lame. So Deku for the entirety of the first day would sit and train that, going from 60 FPS to 6 FPS, going from 6 to about 30, you know, just constantly going up and down. Along with that, he of course trains with 60 FPS more, getting more and more hang of it, and continuing that training through the second and third day. In this time, because he's constantly been training, he feels something else, feeling like there was another level to his quirk, and that he was on the brink of discovering it. Though, unlucky for him, the training camp was about to be finished. Tonight was their last night, and due to that, they wanted to do a little forest walk. Everyone being down, except for Deku in this timeline, who decides to take this time to go sit and chat with Koda a little bit, going and meeting him up on the mountain and just kind of having dinner with him. They sit and chat about heroes and stuff, Koda opening up about his like parents, until Deku would hear something, hearing a twig snap behind him. As he hears this, he immediately looks to the left, staring at a rock as he feels like there was someone there. As he does this, Muscular decides to show himself. Well, damn kid, you caught me. Well, that's too bad. I really wanted to watch you guys scream, but I guess I'm gonna have to fight you now. Oh well, trust me, that's still fun for me. As he says this, he rushes towards Deku. Deku barely activating his quirk in time, grabbing onto Koda and rolling out of the way. As he does so, he feels Muscular's fist going past his head, feeling the force of the last attack, knowing he was 100% trying to kill him. Knowing this, Deku is not remorseful in the slightest. He right away stands up, getting between him and Koda, staring Muscular down as his quirk was still active. What do you think you're gonna do, kid? He can't even finish. Deku rushing right towards him, grabbing onto his stomach and freezing him in place. Muscular froze and watching as Deku would cock his fist back, aiming right at his chest and aiming him right towards the edge of the mountain. Rot in hell, freak! As he says this, he sends his fist flying forwards, connecting with Muscular and sending his overlapping punch right towards him, slamming him with about 15 punches all at once, all directed in one single spot. This penetrates right through his muscles, sending him flying off the edge of the mountain. Because remember, he hit him with double the impact, hitting him so quick that Koda barely even saw him, the fight being finished in about 2 seconds flat. Deku running back to Koda again as he sees smoke appearing from the forest, looking around him and seeing like signs of distress everywhere. He's kind of scared by this, grabbing onto Koda and rushing him right towards the spot that the teachers told him to meet at. He meets them there after running for about 15 seconds, staring out and seeing that they were too fighting as well. Seeing this, he decides to help, dropping Koda and finishing every single one of the villains there in about 3 seconds, hitting them with attacks that was so quick they couldn't even see it. The teachers there ask where he came from, seeing Koda behind him. Wait, did you? Deku stops her. There's no time to talk about that. Where's the rest of the students and where's Aizawa? The teacher's pointing him in the right direction as Deku would begin to sprint off, going straight into 60 frames per second. He remembers back to his childhood, running through the forest, all the tight turns he trained for, all were finally coming in useful. He rushes through the forest, going top speeds, finding like Uraraka's group and stuff, helping him beat that like mustard guy or whatever his name is, finding and helping out with that moonfish guy until eventually he sees someone off in the distance, someone flying ominously, sitting dead silent except for clapping. Deku seeing this can do nothing but stare. Todoroki and Bakugo behind him as Deku would begin walking forward. The other two finally clocking it as in the distance the man's arm would begin to light up. Now you gotta remember, none of these kids know who the hell All For One is. To them, it's just another villain, and due to that, no one really thinks much of it until All For One sends off a huge attack towards him, one that Deku barely gets him out of the way of, activating his quirk last second and grabbing onto him before running about 100 meters away. As he stops, he sees a destruction in the distance, seeing the once forest now flat and completely gone, trees charred and ground turned up. The other two stop and stare. If it weren't for Deku just now, we would have died. They both thank him before they meet up with Aizawa behind him, all of them looking scared shitless as All For One would begin rushing towards him, going and trying to steal Deku's quirk from him. Deku seeing this activates his quirk again, grabbing onto Aizawa, Todoroki and Bakugo, running as quick as he can, running and dropping everyone off before he splits off, rushing deeper and deeper into the forest. Seeing as All For One follows him and him alone, he sighs, staring up towards All For One before running to an open area, watching as All For One floats down and lands in front of him. So you must be Midoriya, right? You were quite the nuisance at the USJ. Please tell me, were you the one that killed Shigaraki? Deku's eyes go wide. Killed Shigaraki? Who the hell's Shigaraki? I didn't kill anyone. All For One activating a gravity quirk which forces Deku to the floor, walking towards him again as he begins to get angry. Tell the truth, little boy. Did you kill my protege? Do you know how long I've worked on that body for? Deku barely forces his neck up, staring All For One in the eyes as All For One adds more and more gravity to him, forcing Deku to the floor as he begins to hold his hand out. Your quirk will do me nicely. Just as he's about to do it though, someone comes in clutch. Aoyama, deciding to go on his redemption arc, having been sitting in a bush the entire time watching everything go down. He sends a laser right towards All For One's arm, watching as All For One blocks it with a quirk, stopping and staring towards him. You know what? I can get that quirk later. Right now, you deserve death. He stares Aoyama down, Aoyama like shitting himself, until Deku behind him would begin to stand up. Leave him out of this. All For One stares back at him. Aren't you a fierce little one? You sit the hell back down. He forces gravity back down onto him, Deku taking a knee, unable to do anything as All For One walks Aoyama down, readying up an attack and about to kill him until Deku would begin to do something, not even knowing what he was doing, weakly forcing his hands to the front of him to make a hand sign, standing completely silent as his soul would project his technique outwards. All For One feeling himself getting overlapped by some type of dark, weird circle, feeling his vision going black before everything goes red, all of his danger sense quirks going off the charts. Deku finally opening his eyes to see something staring back at him, his domain expansion. If you haven't seen the domain expansion for this technique, by the way, it looks sick. Do yourself a favor and look it up. It's called like Time Cell Moon Palace or something like that. All For One seeing his huge eye staring back at him, feeling like he couldn't move a single centimeter, otherwise he would die, his intuition being correct. If you don't know how this domain expansion works, it makes it so every single cell in your body has to do like the 60 frames per second thing, or they individually freeze up. So All For One either sits completely still or he's dead, something which Deku knew. Knowing this, he starts to walk All For One down, the gravity finally dissipating from him, staring at All For One before he puts his hand on his chest, giving him the slightest push which would kill him instantly. I don't think you understand. He is not coming back from an attack that would pause every single one of his cells. What are you going to do against that? All For One dying on the spot, Aoyama being the only one to see it, but he won't snitch because if anything he's thankful, finally getting him out of the deal with the devil. And that is the entire story. If you made it this far, please say the word Ooga Booga. And the first one to say Ooga Booga will get pinned in the comments like usual. Also like usual, thank you to our members, Lightskin Shin Bob, Looper, Ronkar, and Random21, the GOATs. And thank you all in general for making it this far. I hope you like the story. I think I did pretty alright with it. I think I made this quirk a little bit too overpowered though, if I'm being honest. But who cares? Next video should be the 3K special, which is of course Curse Spirit Manipulation. And then the next video after that's probably going to be the 4K special, because I'm very close to 4K already, and I feel like these two next videos are going to push it over the edge. That being said, if you like this, please subscribe and like, and if you want to see more, check out the playlist and stuff. That being said, stay safe and catch ya.